things started clicking for me, at a very later in life. But I would hope one of the expectations is to come prepared. I mean, the fact that it's called a confidence monitor is it's truly
Yeah.
like that. There could be no better term for it, because
What it
for me, that's really what it is. I'll have people ask me all the time, "You're just the guy that sings on Sunday, right?" It's
Yeah.
like they forget that I actually have a real job. So, I actually manage a group of IT people. So, work for a North American oil and gas pipeline company, and I manage a group of guys that takes care of our North American infrastructure.
Oh, did not know that. I
Yeah,
mean, I did. So I've asked you several times before, but
little things, man. You just
yeah, it's just,
things that just sometimes go in one ear and out
and
the
I
other.
know you've been on several work trips to Canada.
Yes, yeah, up to Calgary. Yeah, that's our.
Nice.
We have our corporate offices in Houston, and we have like kind of our sister corporate offices in Calgary. So,
Nice. Well, yeah,
yeah,
thank you for being here today.
thanks for having me.
How long you lived in Houston? Born here, raised here?
I was actually born in St. Paul, Minnesota,
Oh,
and
wow.
so my parents are both born and raised in Minnesota, and I was born there. I think when I was about 5, we moved to Omaha, Nebraska for a couple years, and then when I was 8 is when we moved to the Houston area. So,
Oh,
grew
wow.
up in Humble, Texas, so just a little
Humble.
bit east of
Nice.
here.
Yeah, well, how long, I mean, when you guys first moved here, were you guys attending Trinity? Your parents attending Trinity, or how did you get involved with just attending Trinity as a church?
Okay, so growing up, my dad was a DCE,
Okay.
and so that's what kind of prompted the moves from Minnesota to Nebraska, and then from Nebraska to Texas. And so, growing up in Humble, we went to Lamb of God Lutheran Church, and that's where my dad worked. My mom was a preschool teacher there, and then growing up, going off to college, kind of disconnected a little bit. And about that time was when my parents finally left Houston and moved to the St. Louis, Missouri area, and Cape Girardeau, and then St. Louis, Missouri, but kind of all in that space. And so when he left, my wife and I were. We graduated college, got married, got new jobs. Everything kind of happened all
Wow.
within a quick span. We actually a little bit of a funny story there. So we were engaged, and we had planned on getting married in a year or so. And but I was graduating college, and we kind of looked at each other and we're like, why are we going to wait so long to get married? And so, luckily, she already had her dress, and but everything else we basically did in 3 weeks,
Oh, wow.
and got married. Of course, you can imagine everybody's thinking, "Are you guys pregnant?"
Yeah. 3 weeks is
Which
pretty
we
short.
weren't, but and
I mean,
as
I only did October to January, but 3 weeks. That's
so and as God would have it in our lives, we had ended up taking us 5 years to have kids. So
yeah,
we'd hoped to have kids a little bit quicker, but wasn't in the cards. But that's all right. So, but
yeah.
yeah. So fast forward, called my dad. I was like, "Hey, Terry and I are looking to." We kind of bounced around Houston. I was an IT consultant at the time, and so kind of bounced around Houston. Lived kind of on the west side of town, Beltway and Westheimer area. And I called my dad and said, "I think we're going to move back up north, and where's a good church? We're looking at the Spring area." And so one of his good buddies was Gary Stewart, who used to be a DC here at Trinity, and they kind of kept connected over the years. And he's like, "You guys should go check out Trinity. Gary, tell Gary that you're my son. He'll take care of you." And so that's kind of how we came to be members here at Trinity.
Yeah, I know for me, my family, there's a lot of Presbyterians in my family, and I'm only a Lutheran because my parents sent my brother and I to a Lutheran school, St. John's Lutheran Church, and yeah, now I'm Lutheran.
Now you're Lutheran. Yeah, my
Yeah, so
wife wasn't really churched as a kid. They kind of Christmas Easter kind of family, and so I think maybe it's Pentecostal or Methodist. I don't recall, but yeah, getting married, and we both kind of floated for a while, and then we decided to start settling down and having kids. We're like, we need to get reconnected, and kind of through that process is really what kind of probably I grew up in church, right? So it definitely wasn't foreign to me, but it was always just kind of a I'm there because my parents kind of forced me to be there. And, I mean, not really, but to some regard, right? And, but going through that process, with my wife, her becoming a new member, I went through new member classes with her just as kind of a refresher really going through that process with her is really what things started clicking for me, at a very later in life, but it was, I think that was kind of the moment for me. I was like, you know, church is a part of me, and I need to figure out how I can serve.
Hmm. So yeah, that leads to my next question: is how long were you attending here before someone approached you to serve on the worship team? Or I guess that another question could be, as far as music goes, were you doing anything musical before you started serving at the church? Do you have a background in music, or how did that kind of start for you?
Yeah, so growing up, I always loved music. My mom and my younger sister always sang in church together. I was always just kind of enjoyed listening.
Yeah.
Took piano lessons as a young kid. I think maybe for 2 or 3 years, like when I was 5 or 6 years old, something like that. Middle school, I got into band, played trumpet,
Nice.
and really enjoyed that. Actually, was I think all state jazz band in high school. So I think it
Mm-hmm.
was, I can't remember if it was my junior or senior year, but I loved playing jazz, so that was always a pretty big part of my existence, I guess. One year, I was also in the marching band at school, and
Oh
it was
wow.
public school, so had a pretty big band
Yeah,
and football games on Friday nights,
they love their
and
football out here. I'll say
they
that. Yeah.
absolutely do. One year, my wife was also in the band, and one year we're doing this marching thing, and Carmen was the theme music,
Mm.
and that there's a point in the routine or the marching routine where we kind of the two of us went out, and then I got down on one knee and I kind of serenaded her. At the time, we weren't dating, and so her boyfriend didn't like that too much,
Yeah.
but but that kind of we've been my wife and I have been best friends since middle school, actually.
Oh wow.
She was in seventh grade and I was in eighth grade, and she I think we dated for like 2 weeks. And then she dumped me because I was probably too immature for her
Yeah,
at the time.
probably. Yeah, I can see that.
um, but yeah, so band. So that was my connection to some of the music stuff. After high school, I kind of just gave it all up. I was
Mm.
in college and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and got into computers. It was kind of the mid to late '90s where the internet was just starting to become a real thing, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Maybe I'll do something with this. And so music wasn't a part of my life at all,
Mm.
at that stage of my life. And so as I mentioned earlier, we came to find Trinity, and I don't actually know how long we were members of Trinity before. Um, I'm sure it was 5 or 6 years.
Mm. Did
Um,
they put out like an altar call,
no,
or
it
is
was
it just something you were like, I think I can serve?
actually it was even more simple than that. So we just happened to be talking with Pat Blake. He was the music director at the time. Happened to be talking to him one day, and I think my wife was probably friends with his wife Sarah, and we just after church just happened to be chit chatting, and my wife's like, "Well, my husband plays a little bit of piano," and Pat's like, "What?" He's like, "Well, you're gonna start playing with me," and so that kind of
Nice.
started my introduction into contemporary worship.
Mm.
And then I don't know, it's maybe a month or two later, another just random conversation after church one day, and she's like, "We know he sings too," and Pat's like, "What?" and so and so there we go. From there, it's been just a pleasure to serve.
Yeah, I feel like at every church I've been at, there's always people there that play and sing pretty well, but they just don't tell anybody, for different reasons. Everyone's
Yep.
got their reason. But But it's always, I will say, it's for keys players. It's hard to find keys players. So I mean, it's when Pat heard that, I'm sure he was excited.
He was, yeah, he's pretty excited at the time.
And so I guess yeah. So how long would you say you've been serving on the worship team here?
Man, over 15 years, I think.
Oh wow.
Trying to think of if I'm trying to do the math. Definitely over 10 years. It's probably been pretty close to 15 years.
Well,
So yeah, a long
it's
time.
longer than most people have actually. Most of the staff has been here.
Yeah, well, so I've gone through. I think you're the third worship director now that I've had the pleasure of.
I mean, 3 over 15
of
years.
serving
That's
with.
not that bad. Usually, turnover is quicker, but
Is it? Yeah, I don't even know how that works for you guys, but
it just depends.
but yeah, it's been fun. I mean, to me, music is stress relief, you know, and so for me to have the opportunity to serve on Sundays, it's working in IT. You know, things are always kind of constant, boom, 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 and for me, it's just it's a good change of pace. It gives me the opportunity to just kind of let my hair down, so to speak, and just chill.
You ever
So,
grow your hair out?
no, actually, I've always had pretty high and tight. How about you? Have you ever had high and tight? Have you always had your hair
I've
long?
always been high and tight. And then for some reason, a couple of years ago, I was like, you know what? I've never grown my hair out. I'm just gonna see what it looks like, and grew a mullet, and it was wavy, and people complimented it, so I kept it.
That's funny.
But
I
I
would
will
just
say,
assume
so
you've
it
had
gets a
long
little
hair for a
hot
long time.
sometimes. I don't know how people with long hair do it. I got to put it up once in a while, let my neck breathe. But
It works out in California, but yeah, not here in Texas.
yeah. So I guess I'm thinking, man, being a volunteer under three different worship directors over a certain period of time. Like how would you describe? And I mean, I know Kyle, I know Pat. I would say our leadership styles are probably more similar to Pat. Sing it and wing it, kind of deal. But
Yeah.
I don't know if that's how he works. But yeah, like how I guess from just being a volunteer under different people, I guess what have you seen that's kind of like a constant or something that's you've noticed that is the same or something that's different?
Definitely a constant has been just the wanting to just build people up, right? So, whether it be the kids that have kind of come through the contemporary worship, kind of flow over the years, or even with some of the older folks like me, just that, keeping the energy up and just being positive and just being supportive, because as you know, I mean, we all have, most of the volunteers that work with you are, we all have day jobs, and so we all have different stresses in our lives, and just knowing that you're there to support us, and Kyle before you and Pat before him. I mean, it always just felt like family, So, and that's the one piece that I've always appreciated about the contemporary worship team.
And something that's different.
Different, everyone has their their
strengths and
tendencies
weaknesses.
strengths and weaknesses, right? But I don't know. I mean, I would agree. You and Pat are probably a little more similar than Kyle. Kyle is very structured. He was really good at saying no. Pat, the word no isn't in his vocabulary. You have a little bit of that tendency, but
Yeah,
I think
people are afraid to ask me to do anything because they know. I mean, I've told people I'll say yes. The word no, it's foreign to me. And so once they heard that, they were like, "Oh, we're not going to ask this guy to do anything. He's going to burn himself out." So it's been nice.
Yeah. Well, you got guys like old Chris Wickman that kind of helps you say no too. Sometimes he's good at saying no.
And my wife, yeah.
And your wife.
I guess my next question is more about expectations as far as you've been around church. You probably working under 3 different worship directors. What is there an expectation of yours, or I guess what is your expectation of a worship director, a worship leader, and the roles that you kind of know they're supposed to do, and things that you are expecting to see? I guess what are those for you?
That's actually a really tough question for me to answer. I say that because I'm pretty happy-go-lucky.
Mm,
I'm pretty laid back. Not a whole lot phases me. I go through, moments where I'll, get frustrated or, get upset about something, but I'm usually pretty go with the flow, and so that makes that question hard for me.
mm,
You know, I guess if we're looking at, just kind of from the top down, just, someone who just loves to worship, right? That for me, I'm not a big Bible reader, right?
mm.
And that's just because I don't like to read in general, and so the Bible's just it's another book, in some regards, right? It's the book,
Yeah.
and so for me, I've always been more of a visual learner, or
Mm,
do learn by actually physically doing something, and so for me, that music is the simplest way for me to really connect and learn scripture, right?
mm,
So I find those little pieces and songs that kind of relate to different Bible verses that I've heard, growing up, or just maybe something the pastor says on Sunday, and I'm like, oh man, we just sang a song that
yeah.
has that same piece in it, and so I don't know. For me, it's how I worship
Mm.
easiest, I guess, if that's the right word to
Yeah, no,
say it.
that's an interesting thing. I was talking to somebody earlier today after our staff meeting, and we were talking about we had a staff devotion this morning. And we were talking about Ezekiel, and when he raises the prophesies over the dry bones. And it's funny. This person said, "Isn't there a song about this?"
A
And
couple of them.
and then she said, "You can probably guess who it is." She said that she's the same way. She doesn't read the Bible a lot. And she said she learns most of scripture through songs, and that there's a song called Rattle where they talk about that story, and she knows that story through that song. And that's why I think worship music is powerful, because, I mean, you put anything to music, right? You're going to remember it.
Yep.
You can see that all through the Psalms. I mean, all through the Old Testament. Anytime there was a struggle or a victory, they were praising and singing songs, and it's the easiest way to remember things. And I just think that's interesting that worship music has much more of an impact than we think. Like subconsciously, worship music. I mean, I'm always listening to it. I'm always singing it, and I forget sometimes that I'm singing scripture.
Yeah.
And it's not saying that you can take it lightly, or you need to be really serious about it, but it's just something I don't really think about that often. Um, learning scripture through songs. That's kind of how I hope to teach my daughter. She's 3 months old. And,
She got the name for it.
yeah, Melody. Yeah, so, that's how I plan to teach her everything. I was singing her the ABC song this morning. I don't think she understood what I was doing, but
Did she at least smile when you sang it?
no, she doesn't even smile when I sing.
Oh,
No.
no.
Yeah, so
Well.
that's why I'm like, I'm not going to sing for you if you're not going to act happy.
Poor child.
Do you? Yeah, another question to follow the last one was. So, as far as your expectations of a worship director or leader, kind of what I heard you say was, whatever comes your way, you kind of roll with the punches.
Yep, for sure.
Being a versatile member of a worship team is it's a little bit more rare than you'd think, because there's a lot of people that like things a certain way, and to have somebody that I can throw a curveball here and there, and have somebody say, "Sure, let's do it." That's always fun. What do you think of worship directors' expectations? We're probably going to get a little more into volunteer side of worship team conversation at this point. What do you think, like a worship director's expectations of you? I mean, maybe not you specifically, but just volunteers in general. I don't know if they would have communicated that to you. It's something I try to do, but it's like it's one of those things where it's easier to think about it, and then
Right.
when you actually have to do it, it's a little bit more difficult. But yeah, what do you if you could name some? What do you think a worship director's expectation for you is of a volunteer on a Sunday?
I mean, I would hope one of the expectations is to come prepared. I mean, there's songs we've done, several times, and there'll be new songs, and I would,
Every week there's a new song. I feel
yeah,
like is
and
I don't know who's
so
picking them.
hopefully even, the people that are volunteering with you that particular week have at least listened to the song and kind of picked the part that they, you know, one of the things I've always admired about you, especially coming into it's a pretty big church, right? Is just you've managed personalities pretty well.
Hmm.
You kind of hinted to that earlier. It's like, well, there's especially with volunteers, you're always going to have lots of different personalities, and so as a worship leader, that's you know I gotta imagine every week there's a million different things going through your head, depending on who's gonna be serving with you that week, right? And so,
Yeah.
so just I would hope, number one on the list would be, hey, come prepared, folks. It's like I don't know if that is number one on your list, but it would be on mine.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's definitely important. But I think probably for me the most important thing is just um, being present, showing up. Um, yeah, doing the work on your own time, but just having a heart for Jesus and
There you
worship.
go.
And I mean, I'd take that over being prepared any day. I've
Definitely
had
something you
people
can
that have
take for
been
granted.
really prepared and they're just jerks, and I'm like, it doesn't mean just because you're prepared doesn't mean you can be a jerk.
Right.
But yeah, it's always different, and that's one of the things that I love about serving in the church is that you get to interact with a lot of different people, and for me, I used to approach it as I had to adapt. I had to change, depending on who was serving on that Sunday, I would change my style or how I would talk to people. But now I'm just like I just talk the same to everybody and um, try to build relationships because it's hard to critique and to offer advice and help to somebody that you don't have a relationship with. Because I feel like when I don't have a relationship with somebody, every time they would tell me, "Oh, you should do it this way," I'm like, "Do you know me?" It's kind of the same thing on a worship team. Is um, a worship ministry is a ministry, and just like every other ministry has their teams. Teams get together, they do building, bonding. It's kind of what I realize is more important. Because I mean, musicianship is also important, but that'll get there if you just build relationship and give your team the resources they need to grow. Because that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, is just growing, doing life together.
Amen. Yep.
Sunday morning, Thursday night rehearsal, those are secondary. Sometimes they feel like they're the most important thing, but it's just secondary to doing life together. But
I'm not gonna lie, that's kind of the easy answer. Yeah. Hey, why do you go to church? Jesus.
yeah,
I'm messing
yeah,
with you.
that's a Sunday school answer.
I'm messing with
But
no, I agree. I mean,
some
having a
deep,
heart for
yeah, there's
Jesus
some
is
deep and profound about
is
it.
is definitely you got to have that
Yeah,
if you're gonna, in my opinion, if you're gonna sing at church, you have to show it, right? I
Mhm.
mean, it has to. You can't just be up there, you know, just kind of doing whatever. It's not about you, it's not about me, it's
Yeah,
about serving and
yeah. There's
hopefully,
definitely a fine line.
yeah,
You want to look like you're having fun, but you don't want to take away from the service and what the service is about. It's about Jesus.
agreed, yeah,
I'd say it's a very fine line, but
yeah.
at, looking like you're happy in general is always a good thing. But some people have RBF, resting believer face, and I mean that's just how it
That's
is.
just how
And
it
so
is. Yeah,
I mean at least sometimes I know when I'm singing, when I'm playing keys or something, I'm focusing, and my focus face is like I'm mean mugging, like I
yeah.
just tasted something too salty.
That's me whenever you make me play keys.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, I got to think about this. I can't sing and play at the same time, unless it's a song I've done 100 times, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You throw a new song on me, I'm like, all right, I could learn this, but I'm gonna be, yeah, I definitely have my my concentration phase on.
Yeah, and so I know when I first got here, you were just singing, um, and I'd seen on the live stream you play keys before, and they told me you play keys, and I remember I kind of talked to you about it, and you're like, yeah, I prefer to sing, and like I just kind of digging deeper into that, like when it comes to, I mean, I know for me, if I was just singing, it'd be a lot easier. Is it just that, or is it more just?
It's really just because I'm lazy, you know. If I'm being honest with you, no. I mean, so when I play keys, like I'm like I don't know if I'd necessarily call myself a perfectionist, but I kind of am in certain ways. Like I
Hmm,
can get really anal about certain things,
yeah.
and so that's one of them. You know, it's like I just if if I'm gonna do something, I want it to be decent,
Hmm,
you know, and so it just adds a little bit of extra layer of stress, you know, to my week. And you know, like I said earlier, for me, volunteering is about stress relief, you know,
hmm,
and so I don't mind. I say that half jokingly, right? I don't mind it at all, but no, it's just I'm not a trained, you know, piano player
hmm.
by any stretch of the imagination. Pretty much, you know, kind of learned I learned the basics, you know, and of course playing trumpet through middle school and high school. I learned how to read treble clef, but forget bass clef. I don't even know what that means, right?
Yeah,
And so,
most of the lead sheets are just treble clef anyway. So
yeah,
yeah.
and so for me, playing piano is always just kind of been a something fun to do, but I just kind of play by ear,
Hmm,
and so you know, learning just to, you know, follow chord charts is, you know, it's never really been that big of a deal. It's
hmm.
not too hard, but ask me to sit down like Dr. Bill does and, you know, sight read a, you know, a manuscript of chords and it's like, nope, I
Yeah,
would
I've
never
seen
do
him.
that.
I've seen that man. We were in chapel one time, and the one of the teachers came up and said, "Hey, we're going to sing this song. Can you play it?" He'd never seen it before. Six flats. He looked at it and he goes, yeah, I can play it. And he just rips through it, and I had to turn the pages for him, and I was just like, this guy's,
Yeah, he's a mad scientist.
yeah, yeah. Something you said earlier got me thinking. Having been serving on the worship team, specifically just here at Trinity for as long as you have, I guess technology, technology and worship have kind of, um, technology has become a big part of
For
worship.
sure.
How have you
Yep.
seen technology implemented just here at Trinity, just with preparing for Sunday, playing on Sunday, singing on Sunday, technology wise? How have you seen that progress since you've been on this team, in, I guess, in positive ways? Or is there anything, the technology that bugs you or?
Well, coming from IT, you know, an IT background, I've technology is my life, right? And
Yeah.
so I get excited about, you know, about different things that can make an experience better, right? So I know you, especially in the Luther Church, so you have sometimes you have both sides of the spectrum when it comes to, you know, traditional and just doing things the way we've always done it versus introducing new things into the worship experience. And so um there's some things that kind of got started with Pat Blake, and there are a million things that he wanted to do, and they just, you know, just didn't have the budget or just wasn't the right time, right? And then with Kyle coming in, it was um, we already kind of had a live stream experience, which kind of started some of the technology, but then COVID hit, and that really kind of, you know, made things different from a technology perspective. There was a need to actually have technology, and there was a purpose for it, right? So that we could still have church without people being present, right? And so that to me that was a fun time, just because it was it created a not only did it create a need, but it created opportunities for a lot of volunteers to just be a part of a different type of worship experience, right?
Yeah.
So that was cool, for sure. Um, Outside of that, like I like having lights in church, and I like having, I don't know, my buddy Jeff Herzig would kill me, but he hates tracks, right? I like having tracks, if they're not overdone, right? So
Yeah.
if it's just supplemental and not replacing, somebody that's supposed to maybe be playing that same thing, and they're just Milli Vanilli-ing it, right?
Yeah.
As long as it's complimentary,
Hmm.
because I think it kind of feels, it creates a I don't know if a bigger sound is the right way to say that, but it creates sometimes there's voids in music, and sometimes you just need that, whatever
Yeah,
it
it
is
fills it
back,
out.
yeah, kind of back behind the scenes. And so
Yeah, I mean,
I appreciate those things, and those are things that, if it's not done right, it's hard to do. And so you need certain pieces of technology to be able to hear those things in your ears, and on the computers that are, up in the command center, here at Trinity, that, kind of all those things get put together behind the scenes. And I don't know how many hours a week you have to spend on getting tracks together and doing different things, but hopefully it's not too complicated. But it's to me, it's cool. I'm just like,
yeah,
man, that's pretty awesome that one, we have the capability of doing it, because a lot of churches, they don't have that, they don't have the money or the equipment or the time or the staff to do it. And so I feel pretty fortunate as a volunteer that I get to see and experience and be a part of a worship experience that has those cool things.
yeah. I still remember when I was first working as a worship leader before I went back to school, uh, like 2000. I don't want to date myself. Um,
Whatever it is,
it
I'm
was
older.
early on in 21st century. No, I just remember when tracks first became a thing. I remember I was working as a worship leader, and this was a church that I was the worship leader, and they also had a worship director, and he introduced tracks. And I remember the first rehearsal, we played with the tracks and the click and the guide. Hated it. I was like, man, it just seemed kind of robotic and stiff to me, and it was so funny because now it's like I prefer to play with the click because
Helps keep
it's
things,
just better.
yeah, it helps keep things
But
together.
looking back on it, I was just afraid. And I think sometimes I still have those fears because, um, I mean, playing to a click. If you ever do any studio work, it's like it's something you got to be able to do. But I'm still afraid sometimes that using tracks, and I mean it limits your spontaneity a little bit. But um, people always say, "Oh, we don't use tracks. We just let the spirit move." And it's funny. I have a professor from Concordia that said, the spirit works in your planning. So plan spontaneity. I mean, it's something to think about. It's easier said than done, but I'm always worried tracks are gonna. And I find myself sometimes too leaning a little bit on the tracks. And here at Trinity, we use the least amount of tracks that I possibly can put in there. And it's more just to fill sound out. But sometimes I'm like, maybe I need to work on, if I'm playing keys, I need to, get main stage and have the keys patches and all this stuff. And I'm like, I could do that, try to dig real deep into the technology and use every single part of it. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't want to get bogged down by that. It's just another thing you have to worry about. Another thing that's going to take your mind off of worship and being in the house of the Lord, and try to keep the distractions to a minimum. But yeah, technology has definitely come a long ways
It absolutely
for
has.
churches. So,
I'm not gonna lie though, some of my favorite Sundays are acoustic Sundays. So
oh yeah,
just stripping it down, just a few instruments and just voices, and I love harmonies more than anything else,
hmm.
And so for me, it's like just hearing even if it's just as simple as an acoustic guitar and two or three vocalists that just are locked in for that
Hmm.
Sunday. To me, those are special Sundays.
Yeah, yeah. Those are. I used to like doing those once a month. Kind of got a lot when you do it once a month. I think Chris told me Kyle was doing them every fifth Sunday, and that happens like maybe 3 or 4 times a year. I always like those because it kind of when you're going to church every Sunday and listening to the band, you kind of get used to that, and you're comfortable with it. And then they play acoustic, and you're like, "What's this? There's no drums." And then I like it because it forces people to question, themselves and their motives. Like, why am I coming to church? Is it because the music's good? The whole point, go to church, and whatever the music sounds like, that's your church.
You're there to be entertained, or you're there to be enriched, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. As far as serving on the worship team, have you seen anything that, like, I mean, obviously you said earlier, we talked about expectations, and you just said, I'll just roll with it.
Yep.
So I was just thinking, have you ever run into an issue, or I guess, are there issues that you've seen, because being a worship director is interesting, and it's kind of the same way as you said earlier when you're introducing yourself. They say, "Oh, that's Brian. He sings here on Sundays," and you're like, "No, I have another job. I have a whole nother life." And it's funny because as a worship director, most of the time your team and mostly the congregation sees you on Sunday, and like somebody called me a keys man that one time, and I had to say, I'm not a keys player, and they're like, "Well, you're playing keys every Sunday." And it's just, when they see you, that's just, they assume that that is all that you do, and there's a lot that goes into being a worship director. But I guess I was just kind of curious if, since you've seen multiple people kind of do the job, you being a volunteer, has there been something that, I guess, if you want to make a statement to all worship directors to say, "Hey, we need to do this better," not quite like that, but if there's something along those lines, like that, you can think of. I know you're going to probably have to dig for this.
That is something I'll have to dig. Can I just say Jesus? I mean, we could get real political and talk about how some people don't like contemporary worship, but we won't go there because I love it. Like, I think it's an important part of. Well, I mean, you're always gonna have people that have their flavor, right? But I think I think people need to have options, and I appreciate that different worship directors bring different options to the table. So I don't know if that's what you're looking for. But.
I mean, it's. I think I was just kind of digging for a. Is there something that I do that bugs you? I think that's what I was really. I mean, I could word it that way. Yeah.
No, I don't know if you.
Pretty easy going.
If I've ever told you this, but I'm actually I'm probably one of your biggest closet fans. Oh. And so, even before you came here, Chris had shared some of the Until Georgia stuff with me, and of course my son Zach was working with Chris, and Zach always goes all in with whoever he's hanging out with, or working with, or working for. And so Zach became a huge Until Georgia fan just because hey, my boss is on this group, and they're actually pretty awesome. And so I think your one of your songs is still like the third or fourth song on my playlist.
Okay.
So it's kind of cool.
I'll listen to those sometimes.
Right. But I don't know. I mean, I have to imagine coming into moving churches has got to be weird, right? I mean, it's
just strange.
It's probably stressful, and it's probably exciting, and it's probably like there's a lot of unknowns though, right? And so seeing how you've adapted over, has it been quite a year yet? It's been
at the end of this month. It'll be a year. Yeah.
Yeah. So
July 30th,
almost a year. Just kind of seeing how you've come in and just kind of made contemporary worship your own is impressive to me. Because and I think Kyle did that before you, and I came in. When Pat was here, that's kind of when I started, and so I had no idea really what it was like before Pat kind of took. Well, actually, that's not true. I kind of lied. So we used to do contemporary worship.
We can call that BP.
BP, there you go. Before Pat. They used to do contemporary worship in the FLC gym, and I think Darla Wilson had a team of people that they used to do contemporary worship. I think that was maybe before Pat
Hmm.
started here. But it's kind of foggy for me. I just remember sitting in the bleachers in the gym and enjoying the music, right?
Yeah.
But then at some point it transitioned into the sanctuary. And of course, that was awkward because we were kind of stuck in the corner
Oh yeah.
because nobody like going up on the.
Well, that's how it goes. You can
Yeah,
start in the corner and then you work your way up.
that's right. So
You got to earn their trust.
that's right. So I was around during the days when we were kind of an afterthought, stuck in the corner of the sanctuary. But I don't know. But we didn't know any different, so we thought it was cool just to be in the big church and not in the gym anymore.
Yeah, no, definitely. Moving. I mean, yeah, moving is just the move itself is a lot. But yeah, I mean, I moved. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think this is the fourth move when I got here.
All with different church
yeah.
because of moving to different churches. Okay.
Yeah, and after I graduated, I was in Florida for a year and went to Waco. Was in Waco for a couple of years and Phoenix for a couple of years and here. And I think, yeah, it's a lot. Definitely the first couple months, you're overstimulated. There's a lot on your mind because there's a lot. I mean, it's for me, it's more just, what's the system?
Right.
I learned the system first, so then I can learn the people. Because when you're trying to do both, it doesn't work out. I can't multitask. Ask my wife. But yeah, learn the system, and I mean, I feel like I feel pretty grateful for Pat and Kyle building what they have, because there's some churches that I've stepped into that had close to nothing, and bare bones stuff, and I think when you go into a church where the people have gone before you, have built that up, and you get to kind of stand on their shoulders, and it makes my job a whole lot easier. So when it came to learning the system, it was pretty easy here, because I think definitely Kyle and Pat before him kind of would just been chiseling away, getting it defined, and yeah, it wasn't too bad. It was just, I think the hardest part was just trying to get used to the humidity. I mean, I feel like that's the only thing I think of that was difficult, because I feel like all the volunteers here are great. Every conversation I've had with anybody, the congregation has been great. It's just fun to be a part of a team that likes to have fun, because I think that's one of my biggest things is nobody wants to serve. There might be a few people out there that want to serve on a team that's not fun, but I feel like if you're not having fun, I mean, there's times to be serious, but I think making serving, especially on the worship team, fun and something that is easy.
Yep.
That's always been really important to me, because like you said earlier, yeah, every one of the volunteers is playing on Sunday has got another job, and it's so when someone calls in and say, hey, I'm working late, I gotta skip rehearsal, I could say, you know what, you've had a month of there's just like so many things you can say, but at the end of the day, it's like
it's life, man.
They have a whole nother life, a whole nother thing. They got a family, so it's like expectations for your volunteers are definitely something I try to kind of hold loose, kind of like you said earlier.
We hope they try to make it a priority. I know as a volunteer, I try to make it a priority and be present, but yeah, at the end of the day, life happens sometimes, right?
So when did how long has Trinity had the confidence monitor in the back?
Ooh. It might have been towards the tail end of Pat's. That might have been one of the pieces of technology
so singing,
that Pat brought in. Yeah,
singing on a Sunday morning. Obviously you probably have sang in the sanctuary before that was up there.
Yep,
and now that it's
music
up there,
stands and lyric sheets.
Are you looking at the confidence monitor quite a bit, or it's more just kind of leading you with cues? And
I mean, the fact that it's called a confidence monitor is it's truly like that. There could be no better term for it, because for me, that's really what it is. Like
when it doesn't work, you got no confidence. Like I can see that.
I mean, if I listen to the songs over and over and over and over and over again, then the words usually kind of click in. But I think knowing that there's going to be words in the back of the church, like I probably don't uh, try to learn the words as much as maybe I would if that wasn't going to be there. And so yeah, it's of course I always love those Sundays where something, a little blip happens, or the TV technology fails you, right? And it's all of a sudden I'm creeping over,
Yeah.
to one side or the other to check the iPad or the chord chart that that somebody's got so I can see the words. But no, yeah, I mean that's probably for me personally, that's probably the single best thing that ever happened here at Trinity was that
Confidence monitor.
having those lyrics up there, because it just takes all the pressure off, in
Yeah.
my opinion, especially as a volunteer. Just anything you can do to minimize the stress makes things more fun, right?
That's true.
And
I mean, I've been on a few different worship teams that you're required to memorize lyrics. It's when you're leading 3 to 4 songs, it's a
yeah.
lot. So yeah, confidence monitors.
Yeah, that would be tough to volunteer at a church like that if you were required as a volunteer. Now, if you're getting paid, I understand, right? But if
Getting paid by the line.
that's right. But if as a volunteer, that would definitely to me it would be discouraging.
I mean, I could ask that how much time do you spend per week preparing? See, I could even, if someone asked me that question, I'd be like, not enough.
I mean,
Because it's like it's funny when there's a Sunday where I know all the songs like the back of my hand. I'm tempted to say I don't need to practice,
Yeah.
and then like I get there Thursday night or I'm playing keys and I don't know the keys part, and I'm like,
maybe I should have looked at this a
maybe
little
I
bit.
should have. Yeah, it's the temptation. I think I'm lazy too. I might be. I don't know. I need to go get tested, but every time I have to do something, and it's like a reoccurring thing, like a lot of my brain power goes to how can I make this as easy as possible for myself so I can be lazy. I mean, probably not that. It's more of just our brains are wired to make things easier so we can do other stuff, I guess. But
well, I mean, kind of like you said earlier, when you people just see you on Sunday mornings, you're like, "Hey, you're the piano guy, or you're the you're the you're the guy that plays guitar and sings." They don't realize all the other things that goes on behind the scenes that you have to take care of to prepare every week, and so no, I get that. Yeah, I think for me, it's probably, man, I don't. I don't I don't even know. I mean, it's I Sundays that on the Sundays that I know the songs, like if there's nothing to do, and lately you've been throwing a lot of new stuff at us, which is great, by the way.
keeping on your toes.
But
Yeah.
I'm just like, yeah,
I think it might be for myself too.
I gotta
I'm like,
listen quite a bit, and that, which I think pre-COVID it was a little easier because I used to drive to work every day of the week, right? And so it was easy. I just pull the playlist up in my car, and some days I have an hour drive both ways downtown, right? So I have an hour on the way and an hour on the way home, and I get a lot of time to listen to the songs, and but that's changed a little bit post COVID. I don't go downtown quite as often, only 3 days a week, and then a lot of times I'll carpool with a buddy. So
it's 3 days too many.
Yeah, that's right. And so when I carpool, I typically, I'm gonna force feed my buddy a bunch of songs that he may or may not have ever heard of, right? So, but I don't know. I mean, for me, it's how long it takes me each week to prepare. Definitely depends on if I'm just singing or if I've got to prepare on piano. But I don't know.
If it's a new song, I mean, is that you just listen to it? I know there's a lot of people that. I mean, I'm one of those people. If I listen to something, it's easier for me. Rather, if I'm looking at it on sheet music, if I'm listening to it, I learn it better.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like if you have a set way of,
I'll typically I will
practicing or
yeah, I'll typically I'll listen to a song, especially if it's a new song. I'll listen to it a couple times, and then usually I'll pull up the chord chart just so I can kind of see where the chord changes are, and just kind of I don't know, for some reason that randomly helps me memorize the lyrics. I guess if I'm trying to memorize the lyrics, like just know it because I'm a visual learner, right? And so like when I physically see, okay, this chord's here and this word's here, and for some reason it makes it all it makes it all come together for me. I have no idea why.
see that?
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I'd probably if I had to say on average for a normal week, if I'm not playing keys, if I'm just singing, probably 4 or 5 hours is,
Hmm.
is what I have to spend. But that's just me because usually I like the songs, so I want to listen to them anyways, and so I'll put them on repeat and whether I'm singing, lead or singing harmonies, I usually will just sing harmonies anyways, just along with the songs when I'm listening to them, just because that's fun to me. I don't
Yeah.
know. But yeah, weeks I'm playing keys might put a little more time into it. Sometimes my wife she'll she cracks up because usually it's late at night. Come home from work, yeah, do whatever with my wife, and especially now that the kids are home for the summer, hang out with them, do whatever, and then I don't know, sometimes it's 10 or 10:30 before I even think about it,
Hmm.
and all of a sudden it's 1 in the morning. I'm like, oh man, I've been at this for a while, and but yeah, I don't know, but it's fun, right?
Hmm.
So I enjoy new songs. I enjoy. Um, I know a lot of songs are kind of similar, right? I mean, there's only so many different chords you could play and that sound good together, right?
Yeah.
So there's sometimes it's some weeks are easier and some weeks are not, but I don't know. It's just to me music is fun, and so
Hmm.
just having the opportunity to whether it's a song we've done a million times or a song that we're learning for the first time, it's um I try to look at I try to relate it back to maybe an old Bible verse that I've heard, or I wish I could say I did it more often, and I should do it more often, but actually looking at, hearing a lyric in a song and trying to find where that where that verse is. Every once in a while, I'll Google it because I'm lazy, but I wish I would do that more
It's
because
much easier to Google it. Yeah.
right, yeah. I wish I would do that more because that's how I connect.
Hmm.
Um, that's how I connect.
Yeah. I know. When I first got here, you were serving, man. I think almost every Sunday.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know when it was. I remember I didn't schedule on a Sunday, and you were like, "Man, that was nice." And I guess I was just thinking, because there's always on every team's different. You got people that only want to serve once a month. Some people that'll serve every month, kind of like you. You're like whenever you need me, and I'm selfishly would like to schedule you each Sunday, but I guess I, knowing that you would serve every Sunday, like how important are those days, those weeks, those Sundays that you get and you're not serving, you get to sit, with your family.
The selfish part of me is like, man, I wish I was up there because I just love to sing,
Yeah.
But
So it's just torture when you're not up there, is it?
no, it's not torture, but I'm just like, oh man, I wish because it never fails. There's always a Sunday where if I'm not scheduled, there's like someone I hadn't sang with in a while. I'm like, oh man,
Okay.
I didn't get a chance to sing with them this week. I haven't
Uh,
sang with them in months, or whatever. But no, I mean I appreciate that you're sensitive to that because I don't definitely by no means was I ever feeling like I was getting burned out, but I just you get into a routine, right? And so, and it was for me, it was a nice routine to be in. It gave me something to look forward to every week. But I do appreciate that you're sensitive um, to not letting people get to that point where that it doesn't mean anything to them, right?
Yeah.
Because I think we talked about this earlier. For me, being a volunteer it's an opportunity for me to serve, and that's something that I don't. I was probably just I don't know if it's something you can teach, right? It's something that it's just part of my personality.
Hmm.
It's like I've always I've always put other people first, and sometimes to detriment of myself, but it's just a part of who I am,
Hmm.
you
Sure, you don't
know.
want to be a church worker?
You don't know how
You'd
many
be.
times people have asked me that.
Well, yeah, I could probably see how that was modeled for you, by
Yeah,
your parents growing up,
absolutely.
um,
Yep.
being, having parents that, one's a teacher and one's a DC. Yeah, I can see that being modeled for you in
Yeah.
every interaction they had. Probably you were just watching, and so I mean, when you see other people uh, loving to serve or being excited to serve, it kind of gets you like a little pumped up too. Um, Especially when you're having a rough week, you just see somebody who just loves to serve, and you're like, man, that gives me encouragement. Even though they haven't even said anything to me, they just look like they're having a good time.
Well, that's cool.
So I mean, that's stuff that I always appreciate, because I mean, it's easy. Well, when you're doing stuff in worship, it's easy to read people. You know, vocalists kind of get the short end of the stick, because they're just out there. They got nothing but the mic in front of them. So body language is, you can always tell when someone's uncomfortable, nervous, and but one thing I appreciate about you is that you always just, yeah, you're always pumped up, um, always ready to go, always got a smile on your face. Yeah, for me, I know that whenever I schedule you, I know that when someone sees you leading a song, I know they're going to say, "Man, that guy looks like he's having fun. I want a piece of that." Or that kind of sounds weird. I want to.
Well, be a
I
part of
want to
that.
have what he's having, kind of
There, I
deal.
want what
Like
he's got,
what's
right?
he? Yeah.
But
But
you asked that question. How come you never got into church work? And my answer every time someone asks me that, my answer always is, well, where else are you going to find a volunteer like me? I mean, because I don't know. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
for me. I think. I don't know if it's for me, but volunteers are an important part of a church organization, right? And so I think having good volunteers is sometimes hard to find, And for me, I don't know. Part of me is like, well, it takes some of the edge off, because I can be like, well, I'm just volunteering, so they can't get mad at me if I mess up, or they can't
yeah,
get
yeah.
mad at me if I'm doing something maybe I shouldn't be
Hmm.
doing. I feel like maybe I'm not under the microscope like you are,
Hmm.
right? Uh, but
Yeah.
but yeah, no, that's always been my answer. It's like, where else are you gonna find a volunteer like me, right?
It's true. I was gonna say, if someone says you should be a church worker, you should say, "What are you gonna start paying me?" And then they'll be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa,
That's
take it
right.
easy there." Yeah.
That's right.
No, I think before we wrap up, is there? We kind of talked about a lot of stuff. Um, just as far as if there's anybody watching this that volunteers at their church, and they're looking for ways to kind of maximize their experience, or maybe somebody who's looking to volunteer, like just not really advice, but I don't know, just one. If you could sum up, like, what is a good volunteer? It's very subjective, but um, if you can kind of sum that up into kind of like a short sentence or phrase.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the best way for me to answer it is just based on how I approach volunteerism, and it's have fun. I mean, you want to do it because you want to do it.
Hmm.
Serving has to come from the heart, right? And if it's not coming from the heart, then you're not doing it for the right reasons, right? So do it because not because it makes you feel good, but because of how you can hopefully make others feel. To me, that's an important aspect of being a volunteer as well. Is just helping others. So
That's good.
but have fun. That's for me. That's the most. I try to approach everything in life with from the point of view of how can we make this fun, right? So,
Okay, I got a question for you then. Going to the not the DMV. What do they call it out here?
yeah, that's right. Department
Going to
of
the DMV.
Vehicle.
How do you make
Motor
that
vehicles. Oh, okay. Yeah, you probably can't make that fun. You try and do it online,
fun? Oh, hey, there you go.
so you don't have to go to begin with.
Trying to think of something else that's not fun that you can never like. It's impossible to make fun. Can't think of anything else.
If we're talking about staying online somewhere, like
Stay in line.
I'll randomly just start talking to someone next to me, and sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't. And all of a sudden, you're best friends with that person by the time you're done getting through whatever you're trying to get through, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've seen that book written yet. How to Make Anything Fun. Should write it.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching another episode of the Worship Unplugged podcast. Do us a favor, and if you can, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends. It would really mean a lot to us. We'll see you on the next one.